How to survive the rumor mill after a small misstep at tea. A true Regency tale of damage control and quiet dignity. This tale illuminates several timeless lessons for those who navigate the delicate waters of social consequence. First, that a single unguarded moment need not define a lifetime, for reputation is not a fixed star but a story written by many hands. Second, that the path through scandal lies not in hiding but in facing forward with dignity and measured grace. Third, that true strength emerges not from perfection but from the courage to acknowledge imperfection honestly. Fourth, that our enemies often hold less power than we imagine, and that power diminishes further when we refuse to cower before it. Fifth, the vulnerability, when wielded with wisdom, transform from weakness into unexpected armor. And finally, that the manner of our rising teaches others how to rise, in turn making our struggles into lanterns for those who stumble from after us. Now, let us begin. The drawing room at Hartwell House smelled of hothouse roses and ambition. 23 ladies of consequence had gathered for Lady Hartwell's Thursday salon, their teacups balanced with practice, precision, their smiles calibrated to convey warmth without excessive familiarity. Miss Eleonora Whitmore sat near the window, exhaustion pulling at her bones. She had spent 3 nights nursing her younger sister, through a fever, and worry about her family's quietly declining finances had kept her from true rest even when she could have slept. She was neither a diamond of the first water nor a wallflower. At 4 and 20, she had learned to navigate society with careful precision, building her reputation on reliability and discretion. 3 seasons had taught her the value of measured words and pleasant expressions. Mrs. Pemberton held court near the fireplace, her voice carrying that particular pitch that demanded attention while pretending to seek none. I have heard the most extraordinary thing about Miss Arabella Sinclair. It seems she has formed an attachment to a naval officer of absolutely insufficient fortune. Her mother must be quite desperate. One cannot help but wonder what sort of household produces such poor judgment in matters of the heart. The ladies murmured their agreement. Teacups lifted to hide their expressions of delighted scandal. Eleanor knew Arabella Sinclair. She was a kind girl, barely 18, whose only crime was possessing a romantic heart in a mercenary world. Something hot and tired rose in Eleanor's chest. Perhaps Mrs. Pemberton, if we spent less energy cataloguing the romantic missteps of others, we might find time to examine our own glass houses. I believe yours has a rather notable crack from the season of '09. The words were out before she could recall them. Silence descended upon the room like a physical weight. Teacups froze like a physical weight. Teacups froze mid-air. Lady Ashworth, the formidable matriarch whose opinion could make or break a reputation, raised one eyebrow a fraction of an inch. Mrs. Pemberton's face cycled through 3 shades of puce before settling on a glacial smile. How spirited you are today, Miss Whitmer. Eleanor felt the blood drain from her face as she realized what she had done. She had publicly criticized a woman of superior standing. She had alluded to old scandal, and she had done so without the protection of high rank or fortune, to shield her from consequence. The remainder of the afternoon passed in a blur, or stilted conversation. When Eleonora finally escaped to her carriage, Her hands were trembling. That night she paced her bedchamber at Whitmore Lodge while the fire died to embers. Her mind constructed elaborate catastrophes. Her family's social standing would crumble. Her two younger sisters would suffer. The modest suitors who had shown interest would retreat. She would become a cautionary tale mothers whispered to daughters. By dawn, she had moved through denial and bargaining and arrived at a hard-won acceptance. The words cannot be unspoken. Therefore, the only path forward is through. She took out her writing desk and wrote by candlelight. What is the nature of this beast called reputation? It is not a fixed star by which we navigate. It is rather a story one authored by many hands, edited by gossip, and published anew with each retelling. If I cannot control the story, perhaps I can influence its next chapter. At breakfast, her mother was already waiting, tea poured and expression unreadable. Mrs. Harriet Whitmore had married for love, watched that love fade into mutual tolerance, and spent 25 years navigating society without fortune, beauty, or powerful connections. She was Eleonora would come to understand, an expert in survival. You have made an error, my dear. You have heard. Lady Hartwell's housekeeper is cousin to our cook. I knew before you returned home yesterday. Eleonora waited for the lecture that would surely follow. Instead, her mother sipped her tea calmly. Not a catastrophe, an error. Mrs. Pemberton is offended, but she's not powerful enough to destroy you, and you are not insignificant enough to destroy easily. We exist in that fortunate middle territory where mistakes are possible but not fatal. What am I to do? You will not disappear. Absence is interpreted as shame, and shame as guilt, and guilt as proof of malicious intent. You will attend every event you are invited to. And Mrs. Pemberton? You will approach her once and only once. You will express regret without excessive explanation. Then you will never mention it again. That cannot possibly be enough. Her mother smiled. Her mother smiled. Expression was smoothed by years of practice. At 20, I laughed at the wrong moment during Lady Ashworth's musicale. I appeared to mock a mediocre performance. The incident nearly ended my prospects. I never knew. Within 2 months, no one remembered what I had laughed at. Within a year, no one remembered I had laughed at all. Society's memory is long for grudges but short for details. That evening, Eleonora dressed with care, neither penitentially plain nor defiantly bright, and attended the card party at the Beckfords with her younger sister, Cecily, as companion. She entered the room with her chin level and her expression pleasant. She greeted everyone with warm but measured friendliness. With warm but measured. She did not seek out Mrs. Pemberton, but neither did she avoid her. She laughed naturally at Beckford's Miss. She laughed naturally at Mr. Beckford's poor jokes. Near the refreshment table, a voice interrupted her careful performance. Miss Whitmore, I understand you caused quite a sensation at my aunt's salon yesterday. She turned to find Mr. Henry Ashworth, Lady Ashworth's nephew. He was 30 years of age, possessing a good fortune and handsome in an unconventional way. Too angular, too thoughtful in expression, he had recently returned from managing estates in Northumberland, and was assisting his aunt during her husband's illness. Mrs. Pemberton has mentioned your remarks no fewer than 14 times since dinner. You can't, sir? I observe. There is a difference, though I grant you it is a fine one. He studied he studied her with unnerving attention. You do not appear to be the wild-eyed radical Mrs. Pemberton describes. Either she exaggerates, or you are exceptionally skilled at disguise. Eleanor made a decision. She would be neither defensive nor falsely remorseful. I spoke without sufficient forethought. The sentiment was not entirely without merit, but the expression was unwise. I regret the manner, if not the entire substance. His expression shifted with something like respect. That is remarkably precise calibration of apology. Most people would either grovel excessively or refuse to acknowledge wrongdoing altogether. You have found a narrow path between. I have had 12 hours to consider my options. Groveling would be dishonest. Defiance would be foolish. Precision seemed the remaining alternative. He smiled. A rare occurrence she would later learn. I believe, Miss Whitmer, that you may be considerably more interesting than this party deserves. He walked away, leaving her with a curious flutter. She firmly categorized as nervous exhaustion. 3 days later, she waited near the church gate after Sunday services. Mrs. Pemberton emerged into the light morning light, her expression hardening when she spotted Eleonora. Mrs. Pemberton, I wish to express my regret for my remarks at Lady Hartswell's. I spoke carefully and without proper consideration for your feelings. It was not well done of me. The older woman's eyes narrowed, searching for mockery. Finding none, she fumbled. Well, I suppose one cannot help but notice. I hope we may put the matter behind us. Eleanor dropped a graceful curtsy, and moved away before Mrs. Pemberton could regain her footing. The following week brought an ominous summons to Lady Ashworth's drawing-room. Eleanor arrived, expecting execution. Lady Ashworth was 72 years old, sharp-tongued, and possessed of a memory that stretched back 40 years and forgot nothing. You have caused my friend Mrs. Pemberton considerable distress. She has dined out on her victimhood for 3 days now, and I am heartily tired of hearing about it. Eleanor's heart sank. However, Lady Ashworth's eyes glinted. You were not wrong about the glass house. I was present in the season of '09. I was present in the season of '09, and the Italian count was neither discreet nor imaginary. She gestured for Eleanor to sit. Tell me, child, was it conscience that prompted you, or temper? Eleanor considered lying, then decided against it. Both, I fear. Miss Sinclair is a kind young woman who did not deserve such speculation, but I also simply lost patience. Mrs. Pemberton has made similar remarks before, and that day I could not hold my tongue. Honestly, how refreshing! Lady Ashworth poured tea with steady hands. Let me tell you something about navigating scandal. The tone forgives many things but not weakness. You have apologized adequately and appeared in public without shame. Mrs. Pemberton's continuing complaints now make her look ungenerous. You are winning, knowing it. Chapter 1 2 She assigned Eleanor a task to help organize the upcoming midsummer ball. The message to society would be clear. Lady Ashworth does not shun Miss Whitmer, therefore neither should anyone else. Over the following weeks, Eleonora found herself frequently in Mr. Ashworth's company during the preparations. Their conversations developed an honesty that surprised her. You do not simper, he observed one afternoon. It is remarkable how rare that quality is. I have always found simpering inefficient. It accomplishes nothing, and yet it is the expected currency of courtship. Perhaps that explains my 3 seasons without success. He laughed, and Lady Ashworth later told Eleonora she had not heard that sound from him in years. In turn, he revealed himself in fragments. His father's death had left him responsible for a mismanaged estate. His mother had remarried hastily and distantly. He had built walls of observation to avoid the vulnerability of genuine connection. I have made an art of noticing others so that I might avoid being noticed myself. He admitted, it is not so different from your careful navigation of society. We are both hiding. Perhaps we are each hiding the half of ourselves. The other has developed. You observe but do not engage. I engage but do not admit what I truly feel. A concerning compatibility. But his eyes were warm. 1 week before the ball, disaster arrived in the form of a letter. Through Caroline Beckford, who had overheard Mrs. Pemberton's triumph planning. Eleanor learned the truth. Mrs. Pemberton had written to her sister in London, who had uncovered the Whitmores' carefully hidden financial difficulties. Her father's poor investment, their halved income, the possibility of losing their home. Mrs. Pemberton intended to reveal this at the midsummer ball. Eleonora was in Lady Ashworth's garden fighting tears when Mr. Ashworth found her. She told him everything. His response surprised her. You are thinking of this as a battle between yourself and Mrs. Pemberton, but you have misidentified the battlefield. She believes her weapon is in your family's financial difficulties. But what makes this shameful? The circumstances of secrecy. Eleanor stared at him. If you reveal your situation yourself, not with shame but with dignified acknowledgment, you remove her weapon entirely. She cannot she cannot expose what is already known, but society will. Society will see a young woman who is honest about her. Society will see a young woman who is honest about her circumstances rather than one who hides them, which is more likely to retain their respect. At dinner the At dinner the evening before the ball, surrounded by the intimate gathering Lady Ashford had arranged, Eleonora dropped the information naturally into conversation. We have economizing considerably this year. Papa's invents Papa's investments did not perform as he hoped, and we must be sensible. I confess I have found managing a reduced household rather educational. One learns what truly matters when one cannot afford everything. The table's reaction was mild interest, some sympathetic murmurs, and then conversation moved on. Mrs. Pemberton, present at the dinner, watched her ammunition turn to ash. Mrs. Pemberton, present at the dinner, watched her ammunition turn to ash. The midsummer ball transformed Lady Ashford's estate with lanterns in the gardens and a full orchestra. The finest families of 3 countries attended. Mrs. Pemberton arrived with her prepared humiliations, and found that everyone already knew the Whitmore circumstances, that Eleonora was being treated with increased warmth, and that Lady Ashford had already taken her under protection. Her planned revelation would now only make her look spiteful. Eleonora moved through the ball with genius ease, not performed composure but actual peace. In the garden, away from the music, Mr. Ashford found her. I have watched you these past weeks, Miss Whitmore. I have watched you face with courage, apologize with dignity, and transform vulnerability into strength. I find I am no longer content to merely observe you. Her heart beat unevenly. What would you prefer to do instead, sir? I would prefer to spend the rest of my life in your company. I would prefer to remove my armor in your presence and trust you with that lies beneath. I would prefer if you will have me to marry you. She did not answer immediately. She had learned not to speak without thought. You understand that I come with a family of reduced means and a recent scandal. You understand that I come with emotional woes and a reputation for coldness. Then we are well matched in our imperfections. She accepted. The morning after the ball, Eleonora encountered Mrs. Pemberton at the village shop. She could have ignored her. Instead, she approached. Mrs. Pemberton, I hope you enjoyed the ball. The older woman stiffened. I also wished to say something. Eleonora paused. I understand my remark at Lady Hartwell's must have caused you considerable pain. Not merely embarrassment, but a revisiting of something you had hoped was long buried. That was, that was not my intention, but it was the effect. I am sorry for it. Mrs. Pemberton's eyes widened. I have no wish for us to be enemies. Perhaps we might agree to simply begin again. For a long moment's silence, then, to her own apparent surprise, Mrs. Pemberton spoke. I have perhaps not conducted myself with complete grace in recent weeks. I felt exposed and I responded poorly. You have behaved better than I would have in your position. It was not quite an apology, but it was enough. 1 year after the wedding, Mrs. Eleanor Ashworth attended Lady Hartwell's Thursday salon, the same room where her scandal had occurred. A young woman, newly out in society, had just made an unfortunate comment. The room had gone silent. The girl looked stricken. Eleonora caught her eye and smiled warmly. Later, she found the girl near the refreshments fighting tears. Miss Crawford, is it? I believe we have not been properly introduced. I am Mrs. Ashford, and I have once said something rather ill-advised in this very room. The girl's eyes widened with desperate hope. Did you? What happened? Eleanor took her arm with easy friendliness. Let me tell you the story. It was rather a good ending, if I say so myself. She led Miss Crawford toward the window seat where she herself had once sat, exhausted and unguarded. The first thing you must understand is that the rumor mill turns on the fuel of your fear. Starve it with composure, disappoint it with grace, and in time it will seek fresher grain to grind. Miss Crawford listened with the intensity of someone grasping for a lifeline. You are not the worst thing you have said, Eleanor continued softly. You are not the gossip others will spread. You are the sum of how you rise, how you repair, and how you treat others when they fall. Through the window, she could see her husband crossing the garden toward the house, his angular face softened by a smile, meant only for her. And I believe your story will have a good ending too.